There's a version of you that doesn't exist yet, a version that wakes up with purpose, a version that moves through the day with clarity and confidence, a version that looks back at challenges and sees growth instead of regret. But here's the truth most people won't tell you. That version isn't waiting to be discovered. It's waiting to be built, piece by piece, choice by choice, day by day. Right now, in this moment, you're standing at a crossroads. One path leads to more of the same patterns, the same doubts, the same quiet frustration that whispers, you could be doing more, being more, achieving more. The other path? It's harder. It demands something from you. It asks you to stop drifting and start designing, to stop reacting and start creating, to stop hoping things will change and start becoming the person who makes change inevitable. This isn't about perfection. It's about progress. It's about understanding that the life you want doesn't require a miracle. It requires a plan, a focus, a commitment to small strategic actions that compound over time. The question isn't whether you're capable. You are. The question is whether you're ready. Ready to stop waiting. Ready to stop wondering. Ready to take control of the one thing you truly own in this world. Your own transformation. Let's begin.
Chapter 1. Create a strategic personal development plan. Most people stumble through life without a map. They have dreams, sure, vague ideas about who they want to become. But dreams without structure are just wishes, and wishes don't change anything. Think about it. You wouldn't build a house without blueprints. You wouldn't start a business without a plan. Yet somehow, when it comes to building the most important thing, yourself, most people just wing it. They hope motivation will strike. They wait for inspiration. They expect transformation to happen by accident. It doesn't work that way. Personal development isn't something that happens to you. It's something you architect. It's something you design with intention, clarity, and precision. And it starts with a strategic plan. But here's where most people go wrong. They create plans that are too big, too vague, too disconnected from reality. They say things like, I want to be successful, or I want to be happy. Beautiful sentiments, completely useless as a roadmap. A strategic personal development plan is different. It's specific. It's honest. It's built on a foundation of self-awareness, not fantasy. Start by asking yourself 3 questions. Where am I right now? Not where you wish you were, not where you think you should be, where you actually are. This requires brutal honesty. Look at your habits, your skills, your relationships, your mindset. Take inventory without judgment. Second question, where do I want to go? And here's the key. Be concrete. Don't say, I want to be better. Say, I want to develop the skill to communicate clearly under pressure. Don't say, I want to be healthier. Say, I want to have the energy to work focused for 8 hours without crashing. Third question, what's the gap between here and there? This is where the real work lives. The gap isn't just about what you need to learn. It's about what you need to unlearn. The habits that hold you back, the beliefs that limit you, the patterns that keep you stuck. Now, here's the strategic part. You don't close that gap all at once. You break it down. You identify the smallest, most leveraged action you can take today. Not tomorrow, not next week, today. Maybe it's 15 minutes of focused learning. Maybe it's one difficult conversation you've been avoiding. Maybe it's replacing one destructive habit with one constructive alternative. The specific action matters less than the principle. Strategic progress is built on daily execution. But a plan without tracking is just a theory. You need to measure. You need to observe. You need to notice what's working and what isn't. And you need to be willing to adjust. This isn't about rigidity. It's about responsiveness. Your plan should evolve as you evolve. As you grow, your understanding deepens. As your understanding deepens, your plan becomes sharper. Think of it like this. A pilot files a flight plan before takeoff. But during the flight, they're constantly making micro adjustments. Wind changes, weather shifts, they adapt. Yet they never lose sight of the destination. That's what a strategic personal development plan gives you. Direction without rigidity, structure without suffocation, clarity without perfection. The people who transform their lives aren't the ones with perfect plans. They're the ones who commit to having a plan at all, who take the time to design their growth instead of hoping it happens by chance. You already know you want to change. That's why you're here. The question is whether you're willing to trade hope for strategy, whether you're ready to stop waiting for the right moment and start creating it. Your plan doesn't need to be elaborate. It needs to be honest, it needs to be specific, and it needs to start now. Because the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is today.
Chapter 2. Focus your mind through intentional actions. Your mind is a spotlight, but most of the time it's scattered across a dozen stages at once. Worrying about yesterday, anxious about tomorrow, distracted by notifications, pulled in every direction except the one that matters. And here's what happens when your focus is fractured. Nothing gets your full attention. Not your work, not your relationships, not your growth. You're physically present, but mentally absent. You're busy, but not productive. You're moving, but not progressing. Focus isn't a personality trait. It's not something you're born with or without. It's a skill. And like any skill, it's developed through intentional practice. But here's the problem. We live in a world designed to destroy your focus. Every app, every alert, every notification is engineered to grab your attention and hold it hostage. Your focus has become a commodity. And if you're not protecting it, someone else is stealing it. Intentional action is the antidote. It's the practice of deciding where your attention goes instead of letting external forces decide for you. It's choosing signal over noise, depth over distraction, meaning over motion. Start with your environment. Look around you right now. How many things are competing for your attention? Your phone, your computer, the TV in the background, the clutter on your desk. Each one is a tiny leak in your focus, and those leaks add up. Create space for concentration. This doesn't mean you need a perfect office or a silent room. It means you need to design your environment to support the behavior you want. Put your phone in another room. Close unnecessary tabs. Clear your workspace. Remove the friction between you and focused work. But environment is only half the equation. The other half is ritual. Your brain loves patterns. It craves predictability, and you can use that to your advantage. Before you start any important task, create a focus ritual. It could be as simple as taking 3 deep breaths, or brewing a specific type of tea, or putting on a particular playlist. The content of the ritual matters less than the consistency. You're training your brain to recognize this is focus time. Now here's the part most people miss. Focus isn't just about what you pay attention to. It's about what you ignore. Every yes to distraction is a no to your goals. Every time you check your phone during deep work, you're not just losing 2 minutes, you're losing the momentum, the flow state, the zone where real progress happens. Protect your attention like it's your most valuable asset, because it is. Your attention determines your actions determine your results determine your life. But let's be realistic. You're going to get distracted. Your mind will wander. You'll reach for your phone without thinking. That's normal. That's human. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is awareness. When you notice your focus drifting, don't judge it. Just redirect it. Gently bring your attention back to the task at hand. Think of it like training a puppy. You don't yell when it wanders off. You just guide it back again and again. Over time, something remarkable happens. The gap between distraction and redirection gets shorter. Your mind learns to stay in the zone longer. Focus becomes less effortful and more natural. And here's the beautiful part. Focused action doesn't just improve your productivity, it improves your presence. When you're fully engaged in what you're doing, you experience life more deeply. Conversations become richer, work becomes more satisfying, even mundane tasks take on new meaning. This is the paradox of focus. By narrowing your attention, you expand your experience. By doing less, you accomplish more. By being intentional, you become free. Your mind is capable of extraordinary things, but only when it's pointed in one direction long enough to make an impact. Only when you stop spreading yourself thin and start going deep. The world will always offer you more distractions, more reasons to scatter your attention, more ways to stay busy without being effective. Your job is to resist, to choose, to focus, because the quality of your attention determines the quality of your life. And that's something you can't afford to leave to chance.
Chapter 3. Set meaningful goals that drive self-improvement. Here's a hard truth. Most goals are garbage. They sound good, they feel good when you write them down, but they don't actually move you forward. Why? Because they're generic. They're borrowed from someone else's vision of success. They're designed to impress other people, not to fulfill you. And worst of all, they're disconnected from who you actually are and what you actually value. A meaningful goal isn't just something you want to achieve. It's something that reflects who you want to become. It's a bridge between your current self and your future self. And building that bridge requires more than motivation. It requires clarity. Let's start with the difference between surface goals and deep goals. A surface goal is, I want to make more money. A deep goal is, I want to develop the skills and confidence to create value in the marketplace so I can provide security for my family and freedom for myself. See the difference? One is a number. The other is a transformation. One is external. The other is internal. One is a finish line. The other is a journey. Meaningful goals are rooted in values, not vanity. They answer the question, what kind of person do I need to become to live the life I respect? Not the life that looks good on social media, the life that feels right when you're alone with your thoughts. Here's how to identify a meaningful goal. Ask yourself, if no one ever knew about this accomplishment, would I still pursue it? If the answer is yes, you're onto something real. If the answer is no, you're chasing validation, not growth. Now let's talk about structure. A meaningful goal needs 3 components: specificity, stretch, and soul. Specificity means you know exactly what success looks like. Not get in shape, but build the strength and endurance to hike 10 miles without exhaustion. Not be more confident, but speak up in meetings without rehearsing in my head for 20 minutes first.
Stretch means the goal challenges you. It's just beyond your current capability, not so far that it's fantasy, but far enough that achieving it will require you to grow. Comfortable goals don't change you. Stretching goals do. Soul means the goal resonates with something deeper than surface desire. It connects to your values, your identity, your sense of purpose. When things get hard, and they will, soul is what keeps you going. But here's where most people sabotage themselves. They set the goal, feel a burst of motivation, and then do nothing to engineer the path forward. They treat the goal like a wish instead of a project. A meaningful goal requires a system, and a system is just a repeatable process that moves you incrementally toward the outcome you want. If your goal is to write a book, your system is writing 500 words every morning. If your goal is to build deeper relationships, your system is having one meaningful conversation each week. The goal gives you direction. The system gives you progress. And progress, not perfection, is what builds momentum. Here's another critical piece. Your goals should evolve. As you grow, your understanding of what matters changes. What seemed important a year ago might feel hollow now. That's not failure. That's wisdom. Don't cling to goals that no longer serve you just because you announced them publicly. Give yourself permission to adjust, to refine, to let go of what no longer fits. Your goals should serve your growth, not imprison you. And let's talk about the emotional component. Meaningful goals should excite you and scare you in equal measure. Excitement means you're moving towards something that matters. Fear means you're stepping outside your comfort zone. If a goal doesn't provoke both feelings, it's probably not meaningful enough. Think of your goals as experiments, not obligations. You're testing hypotheses about who you can become. Some will prove true, others won't. Both outcomes teach you something valuable. The people who achieve meaningful goals aren't the ones with the most willpower. They're the ones with the most clarity. They know why they're pursuing what they're pursuing. They've thought deeply about the kind of life they want to build, and they've aligned their daily actions with that vision. You don't need 100 goals. You need 3 to 5 that genuinely matter. Goals that, if achieved, would fundamentally change your experience of life. Goals that stretch you. Goals that reflect your values. Goals that have soul. Everything else is noise. So take a moment. Look at the goals you've set or haven't set. Ask yourself, are these really mine? Do they reflect who I want to become? Will achieving them make me proud, not just impressive? Because life is too short to spend it climbing ladders leaned against the wrong walls.
Chapter 4. Establish daily routines for emotional resilience. Life doesn't hit you with scheduled appointments. Stress doesn't wait for a convenient time. Disappointment doesn't check your calendar before showing up. The question isn't whether you'll face difficult emotions. The question is whether you'll have the resilience to handle them when they arrive. And here's the secret most people miss. Emotional resilience isn't built in the moment of crisis. It's built in the quiet, ordinary moments that come before. It's built through daily routines that strengthen your mental and emotional foundation. Think of resilience like a muscle. You don't build it by waiting for heavy weight to fall on you. You build it by consistently lifting manageable weight, day after day, until you become strong enough to handle what life throws at you. Your daily routine is that training ground. It's where you practice stability when nothing is falling apart, so you can maintain stability when everything is. Let's start with the morning. How you begin your day sets the tone for everything that follows. If you wake up and immediately scroll through your phone, you're starting in reactive mode. You're letting the world set your emotional temperature before you've even gotten out of bed. Instead, create a morning routine that centers you. It doesn't need to be elaborate. 10 minutes can be enough. Maybe it's journaling 3 things you're grateful for. Maybe it's a short walk outside. Maybe it's sitting in silence with your coffee. No phone, no input, just presence. The specific activity matters less than the intention behind it. You're signaling to yourself that your inner state matters, that you're worth investing in, that you're not just a reaction machine, but a conscious being with agency over your emotional experience. Now, let's talk about stress management. Stress isn't the problem. Unmanaged stress is. And the key to managing stress is having release valves built into your routine. Exercise is the most obvious one, and for good reason. Movement metabolizes stress hormones. It clears mental fog. It gives you a sense of accomplishment that has nothing to do with productivity or performance. You don't need to run marathons. 20 minutes of intentional movement is enough to shift your state. But there are other release valves too. Creative expression, meaningful conversation, time in nature. The specific outlet doesn't matter as much as having one. Stress that stays trapped inside you becomes anxiety, resentment, burnout. Stress that finds a healthy outlet becomes energy you can use. And here's another piece of the puzzle: boundaries. Emotional resilience requires the ability to say no. No to commitments that drain you. No to relationships that deplete you. No to demands that exceed your capacity. Build a daily routine that protects your energy. That means scheduling rest, not just work. It means creating space for recovery, not just output. It means treating your emotional bandwidth like the finite resource it is. And let's be honest about something. You're going to have bad days. Days when the routine doesn't happen. Days when everything feels heavy. Days when resilience feels impossible. That's normal. That's part of being human. The goal isn't to never struggle. The goal is to have a foundation to return to when you do. Think of your routine like a home base. When life scatters you, when emotions overwhelm you, when you feel lost, you can always come back to the routine. The familiarity grounds you. The structure supports you. The consistency reminds you that you've been here before and you made it through. One more element that's often overlooked: connection. Emotional resilience isn't built in isolation. It's built through relationships with people who see you, support you, and remind you of your strength when you forget. Build into your routine time for real connection, not surface-level small talk, not scrolling through social media. Real conversation with people who matter. Even 10 minutes of genuine connection can replenish your emotional reserves in ways nothing else can. Now, here's the paradox. Routines can feel restrictive, like you're giving up spontaneity for structure. But the opposite is true. Routines create freedom. When the foundational parts of your day are handled, you have more energy for everything else. When your emotional baseline is stable, you can take bigger risks, handle bigger challenges, pursue bigger goals. Your routine is your foundation, and the stronger your foundation, the taller you can build. So look at your current daily patterns. Are they strengthening you or depleting you? Are they building resilience or eroding it? Are they intentional or accidental? You don't need to overhaul everything overnight. Start with one small practice, one morning ritual, one evening boundary, one moment of stillness in the chaos. Build from there, layer by layer, day by day. Because emotional resilience isn't a destination, it's a daily practice. And every day you show up for that practice, you become a little bit stronger, a little bit more capable, a little bit more ready for whatever comes next.
Chapter 6. Build unshakable self-confidence. Confidence isn't loud. It doesn't need to announce itself. Real confidence is quiet, steady, unshakable. It's not about feeling superior to others. It's about trusting yourself to handle whatever comes. But here's what most people get wrong. They think confidence comes first, then action. The truth is the opposite. Action comes first. Confidence follows. You don't wait until you feel confident to take the leap. You take the leap, survive the fall, and that's what builds confidence. Every time you do something that scares you and come out the other side, you prove to yourself that you're more capable than you thought. Let's break this down. Confidence is built on evidence, and evidence comes from experience. Specifically, experiences where you faced uncertainty and didn't collapse, where you tried something difficult and learned from it, where you failed and kept going anyway. Think about a skill you're confident in now. Maybe it's driving, maybe it's cooking, maybe it's solving a particular type of problem at work. You weren't born confident in that area. You became confident by doing it repeatedly, making mistakes, adjusting, improving. Confidence in yourself works the same way. You build it by stacking small wins, by setting micro goals you can actually achieve, by creating a track record of follow-through that you can point to when self-doubt creeps in. Start small. Don't aim for total transformation overnight. Aim for one promise kept to yourself today, then another tomorrow, then another the next day. Over time, those kept promises accumulate into a foundation of self-trust. And self-trust is what confidence really is. It's the belief that you'll show up for yourself, that you'll do what you say you'll do, that when challenges arise, you won't abandon yourself. Now, let's address the enemy of confidence, comparison. When you measure yourself against others, you'll always find someone ahead of you, someone smarter, richer, more successful, more accomplished. And that comparison will erode your confidence every single time. Here's the shift. Stop comparing yourself to others and start comparing yourself to your past self. Are you better than you were last month, last year? Are you learning, growing, taking action? That's the only comparison that matters. Another confidence killer, perfectionism. The belief that you need to be flawless before you're worthy. Perfectionism isn't about high standards, it's about fear. Fear of judgment, fear of failure, fear of being seen as inadequate. Confident people aren't perfect. They're willing to be imperfect publicly. They're willing to try, fail, learn, and try again. They understand that growth happens in the messy middle, not in the polished final product. Give yourself permission to be a work in progress, to be learning, to not have all the answers. Confidence doesn't mean you never doubt yourself. It means you don't let doubt stop you. Let's talk about body language in physiology. Your mind and body are connected. When you slouch, avoid eye contact, and make yourself small, you feel less confident. When you stand tall, make eye contact, and take up space, you feel more confident. This isn't about faking it. It's about using your body to shift your internal state. Before a challenging situation, stand in a power pose for 2 minutes, shoulders back, head up, breathe deeply. Your nervous system will respond. Confidence also requires you to get comfortable with discomfort. Every time you avoid something because it feels awkward or scary, you reinforce the belief that you can't handle it. Every time you do it anyway, you reinforce the belief that you can. Seek out small doses of discomfort regularly. Have the difficult conversation. Speak up in the meeting. Try something new. Each time you do, you expand your comfort zone and build evidence of your capability. Now, here's something critical. Confidence isn't about never feeling fear. It's about feeling fear and moving forward anyway. Confident people get nervous. They doubt themselves. They feel imposter syndrome. The difference is they don't let those feelings dictate their actions. Acknowledge the fear. Thank it for trying to protect you. Then do the thing anyway. And let's be honest about failure. You're going to fail multiple times in multiple areas. That's not a sign you're not cut out for it. That's a sign you're in the arena, actually trying. Reframe failure as feedback. What did you learn? What will you adjust? How will you approach it differently next time? When failure becomes information instead of identity, it loses its power to destroy your confidence. Surround yourself with people who believe in you, not people who blow smoke, not people who lie to make you feel good, people who see your potential and remind you of it when you forget, people who challenge you to grow because they know you're capable, and eliminate or at least minimize relationships with people who undermine you, who mock your goals, who remind you of your past failures. Confidence is hard enough to build without carrying around people who are actively trying to tear it down. Here's the beautiful part. As your confidence grows, you become less dependent on external validation. You stop needing everyone to approve of your choices. You stop looking to others to tell you you're enough. You know you're enough because you've proven it to yourself. That's freedom. That's power. That's what unshakable confidence feels like. It's not arrogance. It's not bravado. It's a quiet knowing that whatever happens, you'll figure it out. That you've handled hard things before and you'll handle them again. That you're resourceful, resilient, and worthy of the life you're building. Start today. Take one small action you've been avoiding. Keep one promise to yourself today. Stand a little taller. Speak a little louder. Because confidence isn't given, it's built. And you're the builder. Chapter 5. Develop habits that enhance mental clarity. Your mind is either your greatest asset or your biggest obstacle. When it's clear, decisions are easy. Creativity flows. Problems that seemed impossible suddenly have obvious solutions. But when it's cluttered, everything becomes harder. You overthink, you second guess, you exhaust yourself without accomplishing anything meaningful. Mental clarity isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. And it's not something you luck into. It's something you cultivate through deliberate habits that protect and sharpen your cognitive capacity. Let's start with the biggest enemy of mental clarity: decision fatigue. Every decision you make, no matter how small, drains a little bit of your mental energy. What to wear, what to eat, which email to answer first. By noon, you've made hundreds of micro decisions, and your cognitive tank is running on empty. The solution? Reduce unnecessary decisions. Automate the trivial so you can focus on the important. Successful people often wear the same thing every day. They eat the same breakfast. They follow the same morning sequence. Not because they lack creativity, but because they're protecting their mental bandwidth for decisions that actually matter. Look at your day. Where are you wasting mental energy on choices that don't deserve it? Simplify those areas ruthlessly. Create defaults. Build systems. Free up space for the thinking that moves your life forward. Next, let's talk about input management. Your mind is like a computer. Garbage in, garbage out. If you're constantly consuming negative news, toxic social media, and shallow content, your thinking will reflect that. It'll be reactive, anxious, scattered. Curate what enters your mind with the same care you'd curate what enters your body. Choose high-quality input, books that challenge you, conversations that expand you, content that inspires action, not just consumption. And here's a radical idea. Embrace boredom. Your mind needs empty space. It needs time to process, to integrate, to make connections. But we've eliminated boredom from our lives. Every spare moment is filled with scrolling, listening, watching. We're overstimulated and undernourished. Build habits that create mental white space. Take walks without your phone. Sit in silence for 5 minutes. Let your mind wander. Some of your best ideas will emerge not when you're forcing them, but when you're allowing space for them. Sleep is another non-negotiable for mental clarity.
You cannot think clearly on chronic sleep deprivation, period. Your brain needs rest to consolidate memories, process emotions, and clear out metabolic waste. Skimp on sleep, and you're operating with a foggy windshield. Make sleep a priority, not an afterthought. Same bedtime, cool room, no screens an hour before. Treat it like the performance enhancer it is. Now, let's address the habit that might be the most powerful of all: single tasking. Multitasking is a myth. What you're actually doing is task switching, and every switch costs you time, energy, and quality. Your brain isn't designed to focus on multiple complex tasks simultaneously. When you're working, work. When you're with someone, be with them. When you're resting, rest. Give your full attention to one thing at a time. You'll be shocked at how much clearer your thinking becomes when you stop fragmenting it across 5 different activities. Another clarity-enhancing habit: regular reflection. Set aside time, even just 10 minutes a week, to think about your thinking. What patterns are serving you? What patterns are sabotaging you? Where is your mental energy going? What beliefs are shaping your perceptions? This meta-awareness, this ability to observe your own mind, is what separates reactive people from intentional ones. You can't change what you don't notice. Reflection creates the space to notice. Physical movement also plays a surprising role in mental clarity. When you move your body, you increase blood flow to your brain. You release neurochemicals that improve mood and cognition. You break up mental stagnation. Some of your clearest thinking will happen during or after physical activity. You don't need to be an athlete. A 20-minute walk is often enough to shift your mental state completely. Make movement a daily non-negotiable. And let's talk about mental clutter. Physical clutter in your environment creates mental clutter in your mind. A messy desk, a chaotic workspace, piles of unfinished tasks, they all occupy mental bandwidth. Your brain has to process and filter all of it, even subconsciously. Simplify your environment. Clear your workspace at the end of each day. Finish or delegate tasks that are lingering. Create external order to support internal clarity. Here's the truth. You already know most of this. The question isn't whether these habits work. The question is whether you're willing to implement them consistently. Mental clarity isn't complicated, but it does require discipline. It requires you to say no to instant gratification, to protect your cognitive capacity like the precious resource it is, to build small, unglamorous habits that compound into extraordinary mental performance. Every day you're either sharpening your mind or dulling it. There's no neutral. The habits you repeat, even the tiny ones, are either moving you toward clarity or away from it. Choose wisely, because a clear mind isn't just more productive, it's more peaceful, more creative, more capable of seeing possibilities that a cluttered mind would miss. And that clarity, that's where your best life is designed.
Chapter 7. Track your progress with measurable metrics. Progress without measurement is just motion. You might be moving, but you have no idea if you're moving forward. You might be busy, but you don't know if you're effective. You might feel like you're trying, but you can't prove you're improving. And here's the problem with that. When you can't see progress, motivation dies. Your brain needs evidence that effort is working. Without it, you start to doubt. You wonder if you're wasting your time. Eventually, you quit. Tracking changes everything. It transforms vague effort into concrete feedback. It shows you what's working and what isn't. It gives you data to make decisions instead of guesses to justify excuses. But most people track the wrong things. They focus on vanity metrics that make them feel good but don't actually indicate progress.
Or they track so many things that the process becomes overwhelming and they abandon it altogether. Let's fix that. Effective tracking is simple, specific, and actionable. It focuses on the behaviors you control, not just the outcomes you hope for. For example, if your goal is to lose weight, tracking your weight alone is misleading. Weight fluctuates based on water retention, hormones, and dozens of other factors. A better metric? Number of days you hit your nutrition and exercise targets. That's a behavior you control, and it's the behavior that drives the outcome. If your goal is to build a skill, don't just track time spent. Track deliberate practice. Track the number of times you pushed beyond your current ability. Track the specific improvements you notice. Quality over quantity. Here's the key principle. Track leading indicators, not just lagging indicators. A lagging indicator is the final result: revenue, weight, promotion. It's important, but it tells you what already happened. A leading indicator predicts the result: actions taken, habits completed, skills practiced. It tells you what's likely to happen. Leading indicators give you control. You can't force the outcome, but you can control the inputs. And when you track the inputs consistently, the outputs take care of themselves. Now, let's talk about how to actually track without it becoming a burden. Keep it simple. 1 or 2 key metrics per goal. Track them in a way that takes less than 2 minutes per day. Use a simple notebook, a spreadsheet, an app, whatever requires the least friction. The goal isn't perfection, it's consistency. Better to track imperfectly every day than perfectly once a week. The act of tracking, the daily check-in, is what keeps you aware and accountable. And here's something powerful. Make your tracking visible. Put it somewhere you'll see it every day. A chart on your wall, a street counter on your desk, a simple checkmark system in your journal. When progress is visible, it reinforces itself. You don't want to break the streak, you want to keep the momentum going. But tracking isn't just about the numbers, it's about the story those numbers tell. Look for patterns. When do you perform best? When do you struggle? What circumstances support your progress? What circumstances derail it? This is where tracking becomes strategic. You're not just collecting data, you're learning about yourself, about your rhythms, your triggers, your optimal conditions. And with that knowledge, you can design your environment and schedule to support success. Let's also address what to do when the numbers aren't what you hoped for. When you track honestly, you'll see weeks where you fall short, days where you miss the mark, periods where progress stalls. Don't let that discourage you. Let it inform you. Ask yourself why. What happened? Was the goal unrealistic? Did circumstances change? Did you lose focus? Is there something you need to adjust? Tracking without reflection is just scorekeeping. Tracking with reflection is learning. And learning is how you improve. One more critical point. Celebrate the small wins. When you hit a milestone, acknowledge it. When you maintain a streak, recognize it. When you see progress, no matter how incremental, appreciate it. Your brain needs positive reinforcement. It needs to know that effort leads to results. Celebration doesn't have to be elaborate. It can be as simple as saying, "I did that. That matters." Now here's the paradox. The more you track, the less you'll need to track. Eventually, the behaviors become automatic. The habits become part of your identity. You don't need to check a box because you naturally do the thing. But until you reach that point, tracking is your scaffolding. It's the external structure that supports the internal transformation. It's the bridge between intention and integration. So choose your metrics, make them specific, make them actionable, make them visible, and then track them with consistency, not perfection. Because what gets measured gets managed, and what gets managed gets improved. And what gets improved That changes your life. You can't optimize what you don't observe. You can't improve what you don't measure. You can't celebrate what you don't track. Start today. Pick one goal. Choose one metric. Track it for 30 days. Then look at the data and ask yourself what it's teaching you. That simple practice, repeated consistently, will give you more clarity than 1,000 motivational speeches ever could.
Chapter 8. Identify and eliminate self-sabotaging behaviors. You are your own worst enemy. Not always, not in every area, but in the places where you're stuck, where you keep repeating the same painful patterns, where you sabotage yourself just when things start going well, that's you standing in your own way. And here's the uncomfortable truth. You're not doing it on purpose. Self-sabotage isn't a conscious choice, it's a subconscious pattern, a protective mechanism that's outlived its usefulness, a strategy that once kept you safe, but now keeps you small. The first step to eliminating self-sabotage is recognizing it. And that's harder than it sounds, because these behaviors disguise themselves as reasonable responses. They masquerade as logic when they're really fear. Let's look at the most common patterns. Procrastination. It feels like laziness, but it's usually fear of failure or fear of success. You delay because starting makes the possibility of failure real, or because success might change your life in ways you're not ready for. Perfectionism. It looks like high standards, but it's often a shield. If you never finish, you never have to face judgment. If nothing is ever good enough, you have an excuse not to put yourself out there. Self-criticism. It sounds like motivation, but it's actually protection. If you tear yourself down first, other people's criticism can't hurt as much. If you expect the worst from yourself, disappointment feels less painful. Relationship sabotage. Pushing people away just when you're getting close, picking fights over nothing, finding flaws in everyone who cares about you. It feels like discernment, but it's fear of vulnerability, fear of being seen, fear of being left. These patterns all share something in common. They're rooted in limiting beliefs about who you are and what you deserve. Beliefs you probably formed years ago, in response to experiences that taught you the world wasn't safe or you weren't enough. Here's the thing about limiting beliefs. They're not facts. They're interpretations. Stories you told yourself to make sense of painful experiences. And those stories, they're running your life from behind the scenes. To identify your specific patterns, start paying attention to the moments right before you sabotage yourself. What are you thinking? What are you feeling? What's the situation triggering? Maybe every time you're about to ask for what you want, you hear a voice saying, "They'll think you're demanding." Maybe every time you start making progress, you feel guilty, like you're leaving someone behind. Maybe every time you're vulnerable, you feel exposed and immediately put up walls. Those moments, those thoughts, those feelings, they're breadcrumbs. Follow them back to the core belief underneath, and when you find it, examine it. Is it true? Was it ever true? Is it serving you now? Most limiting beliefs crumble under scrutiny. I'm not smart enough. Based on what? One test? One person's opinion? A comparison to someone else's highlight reel? I don't deserve success. Says who? Based on what criteria? Who made you judge, jury, and executioner of your own worth? Here's what you'll often find. The belief isn't yours. It's inherited. Something a parent said. Something a teacher implied. Something society programmed into you. And you've been carrying it around like gospel without ever questioning whether it's actually true. Once you've identified a limiting belief, you need to replace it, not with empty affirmations that your brain won't accept, but with evidence that contradicts the old story. Build a case for your capability. Document times you've succeeded. List skills you've developed. Collect proof that you're more than the limiting belief claims.
Now let's talk about the behaviors themselves. Awareness isn't enough. You also need to interrupt the pattern, and that requires catching yourself in the moment. Let's say you notice you procrastinate on important projects. The moment you feel the urge to delay, pause. Don't judge it, just notice it. Say to yourself, this is the pattern. This is me trying to avoid discomfort. Then ask, what's the smallest action I could take right now? Not the whole project, not perfection, just one small step. Open the document. Write one sentence. Make one phone call. The goal is to break the pattern, not complete the task. Each time you interrupt the pattern, you weaken it. Each time you take action despite the fear, you prove the limiting belief wrong. Over time, the behavior loses its grip. But here's what you need to understand. Self-sabotage served a purpose once. It protected you from something that felt dangerous: rejection, failure, judgment, abandonment. Your subconscious isn't trying to hurt you. It's trying to keep you safe, using outdated information. Thank that protective part of yourself. Acknowledge that it was trying to help. Then gently explain that you don't need that protection anymore, that you're capable of handling the risks you're taking, that safety isn't the same as growth. Another powerful technique: share your patterns with someone you trust. There's something about speaking self-sabotage out loud that diminishes its power. When you say, I notice I always find a reason to quit right before I succeed, and someone witnesses that admission, it becomes harder to let the pattern run unconsciously. Accountability isn't about judgment. It's about light. Self-sabotage thrives in darkness, in the private spaces where you don't have to explain yourself. Bring it into the light, and it withers. And let's be realistic. You won't eliminate self-sabotage completely. You'll have moments where you slip back into old patterns, where fear wins, where you choose the comfortable, familiar over the scary unknown. When that happens, don't spiral into shame. Shame feeds self-sabotage. It confirms the limiting belief that you're not good enough. Instead, treat it like data. Interesting. That pattern showed up again. What triggered it? What was I afraid of? What can I learn? Self-compassion is the antidote to self-sabotage. Not self-indulgence, not excuses, but genuine compassion. The kind you'd offer a friend who's struggling. The kind that says, you're trying, you're learning, you're human. Here's the truth. Everyone self-sabotages to some degree. The difference between people who stay stuck and people who break through isn't the presence of self-sabotage, it's the willingness to confront it, to name it, to choose differently despite it. You have more power than you think. The patterns that run your life only have power because they're unconscious. The moment you make them conscious, you create choice, and choice is where freedom lives. So start today. Pick one pattern, one behavior that's holding you back. Name it, trace it, question it, interrupt it, replace it, and watch what happens when you stop being your own obstacle and start being your own advocate. Because the only person who can truly sabotage your life is you. And the only person who can save it, also you.
Chapter 9. Align your choices with core values. You make thousands of choices every day, most of them small, some of them significant. But here's what most people don't realize. Those choices are either pulling you toward the life you want or away from it. And the difference comes down to one thing: alignment with your core values. Your values are the principles that matter most to you, the non-negotiables, the things you'd fight for, sacrifice for, organize your life around. But here's the problem. Most people can't articulate their values. They've never taken the time to identify them. So they make decisions based on what's urgent, what's easy, what other people expect, instead of what's actually important. And then they wonder why life feels empty, why success feels hollow,
why they're busy but unfulfilled. It's because they're living out of alignment. They're climbing ladders that are leaned against the wrong walls. Let's start with identification. What are your core values? Not what you think they should be, not what sounds impressive. What actually drives you? What actually matters to you when everything else is stripped away? Think about moments when you felt most alive, most yourself, most fulfilled. What values were being honored in those moments? Freedom? Connection? Growth? Creativity? Service? Integrity? Now think about moments when you felt miserable, drained, or resentful. What values were being violated? Maybe you were lying when you value honesty. Maybe you were isolated when you value connection. Maybe you were stagnant when you value growth. Your emotional responses are clues. Pay attention to them. They're telling you when you're on or off track. Most people have 3 to 5 core values, not 20, not 1. 3 to 5 principles that guide decisions and define identity. Identify them, write them down, make them explicit. Now comes the hard part, looking at your life and asking, am I actually living according to these values? Because knowing your values means nothing if your choices don't reflect them. Let's say one of your core values is health, but you skip workouts, you eat poorly, you don't sleep enough. There's a gap between what you say you value and how you actually live. And that gap creates internal tension, guilt, and dissatisfaction. Or maybe you value family, but you work 70 hours a week and never see your kids. You value creativity, but you haven't made art in 5 years. You value integrity, but you stay in a job that requires you to compromise your ethics. These misalignments are slow killers. They don't destroy you overnight. They erode you gradually, day by day, choice by choice, until you look in the mirror and don't recognize yourself. Alignment requires hard decisions. It requires saying no to things that don't serve your values, even when those things look good on paper, even when other people think you're crazy for walking away. Maybe it means turning down a promotion because the role conflicts with your value of balance. Maybe it means ending a relationship because it violates your value of respect. Maybe it means leaving a career you've invested years in because it no longer aligns with who you're becoming. These decisions are terrifying, but they're also liberating, because every time you choose alignment over comfort, you reinforce your integrity. You prove to yourself that you mean what you say, that your values aren't just words, they're your compass. Now let's talk about values conflicts. Sometimes your values will compete. Career advancement versus family time, financial security versus creative freedom, loyalty to others versus loyalty to yourself. There's no perfect answer, but there is a conscious choice. When values conflict, ask yourself, in this season of my life, which value takes priority? Be honest, be intentional, make the choice, and accept the trade-off. The goal isn't perfection, it's congruence. It's making sure the majority of your choices reflect what matters most. Another important piece, your values might evolve. What mattered at 20 might not matter at 40. What you valued before kids might shift after. What you thought was important before loss might change after. That's growth. That's wisdom. Don't cling to outdated values just because you declared them once. Check in regularly. Are these still true for me? Do these still guide me? Do these still feel right? And when you notice a shift, honor it. Update your compass. Realign your choices. Here's a practical exercise. Look at your calendar. Look at your bank statement. These two things reveal what you actually value, not what you claim to value. Time and money flow toward what matters. If the flow doesn't match your stated values, something needs to change. Maybe you say you value growth but haven't invested in learning in years. Maybe you say you value relationships but haven't scheduled meaningful time with loved ones. Maybe you say you value adventure but your calendar is filled with obligations that drain you. Change the flow. Redirect your time and resources toward your actual values. It won't be easy.
It'll require sacrifice, but it'll be honest. And let's address something critical. Living by your values will disappoint some people. They've gotten used to you prioritizing their values over yours. They've benefited from your misalignment. When you start choosing differently, they'll resist. Let them. You're not responsible for their comfort at the expense of your integrity. You're responsible for living a life you respect, a life that's yours. Here's what happens when you align your choices with your values. Decisions become easier. You have a filter. Does this align with my values? Yes or no? The gray area shrinks. You feel more confident because you're not second-guessing yourself. You're not wondering if you made the right choice. You know you did because it aligned with what matters most. And you experience a sense of peace that no amount of external success can provide. Because you're not at war with yourself anymore. You're not saying one thing and doing another. You're integrated, whole. This is what authenticity actually means. Not self-expression for its own sake, but living in alignment with your deepest truth. Making choices that honor who you are and who you're becoming. It's not easy. It's not comfortable, but it's the only path to a life you won't regret. So ask yourself, what do I value? What do I want my life to reflect? And am I making choices that move me toward that or away from it? Because at the end of your life, you won't regret the things you did in alignment with your values. You'll only regret the times you betrayed them.
Chapter 10. Maintain consistency in your growth journey. Here's the brutal truth about transformation. It's not built in moments of intense motivation. It's built in the mundane middle, in the boring repetition, in the days when you don't feel like showing up, but you do it anyway. Everyone wants the result, the transformed body, the successful business, the deep relationships, the clear mind. But no one wants the process, the daily grind, the unexciting consistency, the showing up when no one's watching. And that's why most people fail. Not because they don't know what to do, but because they don't do it long enough. They start strong, they burn bright, then they fizzle out when the excitement fades and reality sets in. Consistency is the bridge between wanting change and becoming change. And building consistency isn't about willpower, it's about systems. Let's start with the enemy of consistency, relying on motivation. Motivation is a terrible strategy. It's unreliable. It comes and goes. It's strong on day 1 and gone by day 7. If your growth depends on motivation, your growth will be sporadic at best. What you need is structure, systems that don't require you to feel inspired, habits that run whether you're excited or exhausted, processes that work on good days and bad days alike. Think of consistency like brushing your teeth. You don't wait until you feel motivated to brush your teeth. You don't debate whether it's worth it. You just do it. Why? Because it's a non-negotiable part of your routine. It's automated. That's what you need to build around your growth practices. Automation. Not in the sense of mindlessness, but in the sense of inevitability. The practice happens because it's built into your day, not because you decided in the moment that you felt like it. Here's how to build that. Start by identifying your keystone habit, the one practice that if you did it consistently would create a ripple effect across everything else. Maybe it's a morning routine, maybe it's daily exercise, maybe it's journaling, maybe it's focused work blocks. Pick one, just one, and commit to it for 30 days, not perfectly, consistently. That means on the hard days, on the busy days, on the days when it would be easier to skip it. And here's the key. Make it so small you can't fail. Don't commit to an hour of exercise. Commit to 10 minutes. Don't commit to writing 1,000 words. Commit to 1 paragraph. Don't commit to meditating for 20 minutes. Commit to 3 deep breaths. The goal in the beginning isn't intensity. It's repetition. You're training your brain to trust that you'll show up. You're building the foundation of self-discipline. Once the habit is automatic, you can scale it up. Now let's talk about what to do when you miss a day. Because you will. Life happens. You get sick. An emergency comes up. You just plain forget. The question isn't whether you'll break the streak, it's what you do after. Most people spiral. They miss one day, feel guilty, tell themselves they've already failed, and give up entirely. This is all or nothing thinking, and it's deadly to consistency. Here's the rule. Never miss twice. One missed day is an exception. 2 missed days is the beginning of a new pattern. If you miss once, get back on track immediately. No guilt, no shame, no excuses, just return. Consistency isn't about perfection, it's about pattern. And the pattern is you show up more often than you don't. That's it. That's the whole game. Another critical piece, track your consistency. Use a calendar. Put an X on every day you complete the practice. Watch the chain grow. The visual representation of your consistency is incredibly powerful. You don't want to break the chain. But also, be honest. Don't lie to yourself. Don't mark an X if you didn't do it. The tracking is for you, not for anyone else. It's information, not judgment. Now, let's address a deeper challenge. Consistency gets harder over time, not easier. In the beginning, novelty keeps you engaged. But after weeks or months, the practice becomes routine, boring. You start wondering if it's still worth it. This is where most people quit, right before the real transformation happens. Because here's the secret about growth. It's not linear. You don't improve a little bit every day. You plateau for long stretches, then suddenly leap forward. The progress is invisible until it isn't. If you quit during the plateau, you never get to the leap. You have to trust the process long enough for compound interest to work, and compound interest in any area requires consistency over time. Think about it like this. One workout doesn't transform your body, but 100 workouts do. One good conversation doesn't transform a relationship, but 100 do. One day of focused work doesn't build a career, but 1,000 days do. You're not trying to win today. You're trying to stack enough todays to create a transformed tomorrow. Here's another consistency killer: lack of accountability. When you're only accountable to yourself, it's easy to let yourself off the hook, easy to rationalize, easy to lower the bar. Find someone who will hold you to your commitment, not someone who will judge you, someone who will remind you why you started when you forget, someone who will ask, "Did you do it?" without accepting excuses. Or create public accountability. Tell people what you're committing to. Share your progress. The social pressure isn't manipulation, it's leverage. Use it. And let's talk about the role of environment. Consistency is easier in an environment designed to support it. If you want to eat healthy, don't keep junk food in the house. If you want to read more, keep books visible and your phone in another room. If you want to exercise daily, lay out your workout clothes the night before. Remove friction from the behavior you want and add friction to the behavior you don't. Make consistency the path of least resistance. One final point. Consistency isn't about rigidity. It's about commitment with flexibility. Life will throw curveballs. Your routine will need to adapt. That's fine. The principle remains the same. You show up in some form, even when the form has to change. Traveling? Do a shorter version of your practice. Sick? Do a gentler version. Overwhelmed? Do the minimum viable version, but do something, because the consistency matters more than the intensity. Here's what consistency gives you: momentum, confidence, results, identity. You're no longer someone who wants to change, you're someone who's changing. And that shift in identity, that's everything. Because you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. And your systems are only as strong as your consistency. So stop waiting for the perfect time. Stop waiting to feel ready. Stop waiting for motivation to strike. Just start. And then keep going. One day at a time, one choice at a time, one repetition at a time. The person you're becoming is built in the unsexy, unexciting, unglamorous practice of showing up consistently. Not when it's easy, not when it's fun, but especially when it's neither. That's where transformation lives, in the daily practice, in the commitment honored, in the promise kept to yourself again and again. Consistency isn't the sexy part of growth, but it's the only part that works.